Welcome, guys. Welcome. It's your host, Empress Janet. This is breaking news, guys. Breaking news. I have my co host with me, Josiah. Thank you for coming, Josiah. Josiah has some information that he wants to share with you guys. I am his voice, so respect on his name. He has some information about Cuba that he wants to share with us. And we're going to get started, guys. We're going to get right into it and take a look and see what's going on around the world. Breaking news.
Developing tonight in Cuba, heavy police presence in the capital of Havana aimed at preventing more protests. This weekend, rare anti-government demonstrations broke out as food and medicine shortages sweep the country.
WJN's Dana Rebick is live in Palmer Square tonight, where some Cuban Chicagoans are also protesting. Dana.
That's right. There has been a growing group here in front of the 90 Miles Cuban Cafe on Armitage. They are out here holding signs, holding Cuban flags. They are speaking out about the situation in Cuba. They know their people there are suffering. Things have gotten so bad in the country. It's reported that simple medicines like aspirin and penicillin have run out, and these people there are pushing back. They're coming together both in Cuba, here in Chicago, en masse, hoping for change. As diners soak in the sounds of Alberto Gonzalez's homeland, the 90 Miles Cuban Cafe owner reflects on his past and the current unrest.
People have to say enough is enough. I mean, I lived in Cuba. I know what's not to eat for a few days, and I left in 1980. I could only imagine today how bad it is.
Thousands of people took to the streets in Cuba on Sunday to push back against communist rule, marching in Havana. At times, some in the growing crowd threw rocks at police, who reportedly released tear gas. Cuban authorities shut down internet service after many tried to broadcast the protest live.
I see what people are going through. I mean, they're having family members dying because of lack of medicine, the lack of health care, food. And I would probably be doing the same thing. I'd probably be out there in revolt.
The country, led by President Miguel Diaz-Canel, is going through its worst economic crisis in decades. A spike in coronavirus cases and lack of medicine and vaccines contributing to the collapsing economy. The Cuban government also blaming U.S. sanctions imposed by the Trump administration. This morning, President Joe Biden and other officials addressed the growing tension.
The Cuban people demanding their freedom from an authoritarian regime. And I don't think we've seen anything like this protest in a long, long time, if quite frankly ever.
The Biden-Harris administration stands by the Cuban people and people around the world who demand their human rights and who expect governments to listen to and serve them rather than try to silence them.
Cubans in Florida also standing in solidarity with crowds gathered in parks in Tampa and Miami. Tonight in Chicago, Cubans protesting as well, hoping the current uprising will bring help to their people.
All we want is the international community to help us. To help us.
This is not something that you put a Band-Aid on. And we put Band-Aids on it for a long time. I think that right now it's time to take action and be with the Cuban people and support them.
Now, the Cuban government is also blaming the downturned economy on a lack of tourism. This past spring, President Biden said that lifting sanctions on Cuba was not a priority of his administration, but now many are looking to him to see if he will change his mind and take any action. Live in Palmer Square tonight, Dana Rebick, WGN News.
Thank you, Dana.
Well, it's sad, guys. All they're asking for is a little bit of help. And all those people are out there making a stand so that they can get the justice that they deserve. And how come we're not helping Cuba? How come we're not assisting? How come every time I turn around, there's something that we're doing that it just makes us look really bad? Let's check out this Cuban food crisis, too.
Juliette Colon is alone in her kitchen, but thousands are watching. The 39-year-old mother of two lives in Havana and posts her simple and affordable recipes to a Facebook group with some 12,000 members.
Busco del ingrediente que estoy haciendo o de la receta.
For each ingredient or recipe, I tell a story about it,
Dato curioso,
or I include interesting facts,
las calorías que aportan.
like the number of calories.
Entonces, bueno,
The reality is we've had to change a lot in the way we cook.
mucho la forma de cocinar.
Changing the way to cook has become a necessity across the communist-run country. The island nation is suffering under the weight of an ailing economy brought on by the pandemic, an end to tourism, and new sanctions imposed by former U.S. President Donald Trump. Severe food shortages have created long lines outside supermarkets, and prices for certain products keep them out of reach for the everyday person. Colón doesn't get paid for her posts, but she hopes her recipes help others to make do with what they can afford.
You should work in what you like, and if they pay you for that, well, in my case, they don't pay me, but I feel good because I meet people online and I really like to make friends.
Alone in her kitchen,
and that's what we should be doing instead of being messy.
To gather
breaking news,
around her dinner
helping
table.
others. Breaking news, helping others. So again, she's not even getting paid, and she's helping out because she wants people to be aware of what's going on.
Cuban style.
And it's so sad because, again, they need help. We have so much, and yet we do not help because we think that we're better than another country. And when you do that, then you are not looking good yourself. If you think that your GOB is going to assist you, they're always going to be there for you. How come theirs is not helping? How come theirs is not feeding their people? How come they are hungry and they're without? A lot of us have that issue. A lot of us need to make friends with other people so that you can understand what's going on around the world. Shout out to the Philippines. Shout out to Jamaica. Shout out to Singapore. Shout out to Cuba. Shout out to Haiti. Shout out to the UK. Everybody needs help to understand what's going on. And if we don't figure this out and we don't look into it, then you're just sitting by the wayside doing nothing.
Style. This family-owned business is giving Cubans living abroad an alternative way to help their relatives on the island. Economic sanctions imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump have complicated remittances to Cuba, and that's why sending food instead has become popular.
We have a weekly package that is what Cubans need the most. A few years ago, we started to work with companies that promote our services. Relatives abroad can send a gift to their families here. They can send sweets and basic items.
While the service is offered in US dollars and paid for through the United States, the food is served in Cuba. Rice, beans, and pork are a traditional meal for the holidays that Daniel Torres wants to share with his family in Havana on his birthday. He paid for the service online.
There are lots of problems with food scarcity and the limitations of moving cash, and this service allows us to send food and I pay for it from abroad. I am very happy with this.
Economic restrictions imposed by the US have banned wiring money to Cuba. More than 400 Western Union offices have closed in recent months.
That's a shame.
For us because in the middle of the pandemic, it allows those who live abroad to send food and other items,
Exactly.
which is what people need.
Exactly.
US sanctions and Cuba's economic troubles have worsened people's lives on the island.
And they don't care.
Shortages of food and basic items have again become a common problem.
And they don't
People
care.
have to line for hours in order to
So while
get
you're
them.
sitting on your
Cuban
iPhone and
President
you're sitting
Miguel
on your
Díaz-Canel
Apple
announced he
phone,
will eliminate a
you're sitting there
complicated dual
arguing on the
currency system
internet,
that has prevailed for
real
decades.
deal,
It will
Holyfield, real
result in a
news
steep
going on.
devaluation. People on the island are fearing the consequences.
Go sell your
Ricardo
Prada
Torres
purse.
says
Go
the
sell your
months
Louis
ahead will
Vuitton
be
purse and
difficult.
feed somebody.
Starting in January 1st.
That's all I ever wanted to do was help people.
There is a complete overhaul in prices, salaries.
I tried to help
subsidies,
Americans and I
the
got shit
government
on.
Aims at
I'll be
introducing
honored
a
to
new
help
set
these
of,
people.
incentives for state companies, forcing them to increase efficiency, to increase productivity, also to increase exports.
In the meantime, people like Daniel Torres continue to help their relatives in Cuba. And as long as remittances are banned, finding alternative ways to help them survive.
Hallelujah. Keep
Al
singing.
Jazeera.
Keep singing. Father's coming, guys. He's on his way. He does it all on time, honey. Don't ever sleep that one. He'll do it all in time, honey. They don't even know that it's coming. It is coming. It is coming. It is coming. Victory is ours. And you heard what they said. No matter what they're going through, they're still looking out for each other. They're still fighting for the common peace of mind, guys. People want to feed their children. They want to live, and they don't want to have to keep suffering because people are not listening. We're going to check this out a little bit about their ending it.
With acute
The
shortages
communism.
of food and medicine throughout the pandemic, people line up for blocks to buy whatever they can find at stores. Inflation and blackouts during the tropical summer heat wave aggravated the situation. The biggest mass demonstrations for 3 decades have rippled through Cuba as thousands took to the streets in cities throughout the island, demonstrating against food shortages, high prices, and communist rule. In today's story, we are exploring another crisis in Cuba. Luckily, not another missile crisis, but one that definitely has more dire consequences for the Cuban people. Cuba exploded in protests. The protests, with thousands of people calling for an end to the 62-year-old communist regime, began in the western city of San Antonio de los Baños, later spreading to more than 40 cities and towns, including the capital Havana. Protesters numbered in the hundreds. With millions of Cubans now with mobile internet on their phones, news of the protests quickly swept to Havana. By early afternoon, thousands marched through central Havana chanting, "Homeland and life and freedom." The protesters were met by uniformed and plainclothes police officers who bundled hundreds of demonstrators into police cars. Youths tore up paving slabs and hurled them at police. Police used pepper spray and beat protesters with truncheons. President Miguel Díaz-Canel deployed security forces across the country. His government also disrupted communications. State-run Atexa, the country's phone and network monopoly, halted internet service. You know the situation is dire and something is not right when the government halts internet service. If you want to know what caused this kind of reaction and led to this state of affairs, stay until the end of the video. Consider supporting us by liking and subscribing to our channel. Cubans are living through the gravest economic crisis the country has known for 30
Save the Cubans.
years. The Trump administration hammered the island with more than 200 new sanctions aimed at sabotaging the island's economy and stirring discontent. Since the pandemic, which has gutted tourism revenue, Cubans have become accustomed to waiting in line for hours to buy basic goods like chicken and detergent. Pharmacy shelves are barren. The protests were the biggest since 1994, when tens of thousands demonstrated at Havana's Malazón Promenade amid an acute economic crisis brought on by the fall of the Soviet Union.
They need God.
The reality of the Cuban economy.
They better find him. They better open up their hearts and stop being evil.
Cuba's coronavirus-ravaged economy shrank by 11% in 2020, the island's economy minister said. The sharpest contraction since the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. Soaring global food prices and the island's devalued currency, coupled with shortages of basic goods that predate the pandemic, have fueled discontent. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel has blamed the protests on U.S. sanctions, accusing Washington of economic asphyxiation. But he also acknowledged for the first time that the Cuban government's policies have also played a role. What are the economic forces behind Cuba's latest protests? Command economy. Cuba has what's known as a command economy, where government decisions, not market forces of supply and demand, largely determine the production, availability, and value of goods. Command economies are central features of communist societies, and Cuba has been ruled by its Communist Party since forces led by Fidel Castro overthrew dictator Fulgencio Batista during the Cuban Revolution in 1959. In command economies, also called planned economies, the government controls many of the means of production, while private ownership of industries, property, and other resources is significantly limited. Before the Cuban Revolution, small elite owned much of the island's land, industries, and wealth. The revolution was designed to make Cuba a more equal society, and in many ways it succeeded in that goal. Part of the problem is that government control of the majority of industries can lead to inefficiency, bureaucracy, and mismanagement. That, in turn, can translate into shortages of goods, higher prices, and frustration for citizens. U.S. embargo. The U.S. embargo against Cuba has certainly done the island's economy no favors. Since 1960, the U.S., Cuba's neighbor 145 kilometers to the north and once major trading partner, has maintained a trade embargo against the island in an effort to force its communist leaders from power. The embargo, a form of severe economic sanctions, hasn't achieved its goal, but it has made life for ordinary Cubans harder. Medicine, food, and all sorts of other goods are in chronically short supply. The embargo has also provided the island's government with ammunition for its claims that its economic woes are the fault of the U.S. Money problems. Back in 2011, then-President Raul Castro announced reforms aimed at bringing more market-oriented policies into Cuba's state-run economy, including allowing people to set up small businesses and eliminating some of the government's notorious bureaucracy. But 10 years later, the country's leadership has been slow to enact many of those incremental economic reforms, leading to frustration, especially given the urgent conditions Cubans are facing right now. The COVID-19 crisis has gutted tourism, cutting off a major source of income for Cubans who work in the industry, and a major source of US dollars for the Cuban government. That's especially bad news right now when surging commodity prices mean the government needs to spend more to import food. Remittances, a lifeline for struggling Cuban families and estimated to total $2 to $3 billion per year, plunged after former U.S. President Donald Trump tightened restrictions on Cuban Americans sending money back to the island. The pandemic has only served to further stifle the flow of remittances. And a shortage of foreign currency and the U.S. embargo have also hit Cuban sugar production hard, with the state's sugar monopoly reporting that this year's harvest stood at just 68% of the country's planned 1.2 million tons, the lowest level since 1908. Faced with a cash crunch, the Cuban government re-allowed dollar stores in 2020 that let people buy goods like food, toiletries, and electronics with bank cards loaded with US dollars or other foreign currency. That let the government snap up those dollars to help deal with its liquidity crisis. But the Cuban government phased out a third currency, the Cuban convertible peso, known as the CUC. What are CUCs? The Cuban government created the CUC in 2004 for conducting state business and buying goods from abroad after it banned US dollars. It pegged the CUC 1-to-1 to the greenback and stipulated it couldn't be taken out of the country. Until 2021, those working in the tourism sector were still paid in CUCs, leading to disparities with Cubans paid in CUPs. That's partly why Cuba's government scrapped the CUC. At the beginning of 2021, the Cuban government formally ended its dual currency system, devaluing its peso for the first time since the 1959 revolution. The Cuban peso, known as the CUP, was created as the island's currency by the first president of the country's post-revolution central bank, Ernesto Che Guevara. The CUP has always been used for everyday domestic transactions, and many Cubans are paid their wages in CUPs. But thanks to the US embargo and some of the island's state-run economic policies, the value of Cuba's currency evolved to become a tricky issue. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Cuba's major ally, the island allowed people to use the US dollar alongside the CUP starting in 1993. Cubans could trade in their CUCs for CUPs, but the devaluation of the currency means they lost a significant amount of money in doing so, something that hit hard private sector workers who have been paid in CUCs for years, workers like those in the tourism sector. A way out of the crisis. The Cuban government took two significant steps. It announced the largest devaluation of the peso since the 1959 revolution, and it said it would allow private businesses to operate in most sectors. The government also announced it would ease customs restriction on food, medicine, and hygiene products brought into the country by travelers. More broadly, the protests have served to draw attention to Cubans' plight and highlighted long-standing issues that need to be addressed with new urgency. There's the need for Cuba to join international financial institutions to integrate into the global market and to thoroughly change its economic policies and to make significant reforms and move towards market economy. Combinations of many different factors led to protests in Cuba. Those significant ones are the bad and stagnant economy, as well as the embargo imposed by the US. As it is the case in many different countries, slow and unreliable government played its part. We hope that things will turn around for citizens of Cuba. What is your opinion of the situation in Cuba? Did we miss anything, or do you have some additional information? Please share your opinion in the comments section below, and thank you for watching. Cuba.
Thank you for watching, guys. We definitely appreciate that. I just wanted everyone to know what's going on over there. That definitely gave us a very good eye-opener. Shout out to Cuba, doing the best that they can. Guys, if you can help, if you can send anything to these places, Haiti or Cuba, let's save them. Let's save our people. Let's step out of our box and do something that we normally don't do. Let's care. Let's have empathy. Let's not put sympathy on it. Everyone's going through something. Let's unite. Let's have unity. Let's stop dividing and start looking at the real deal. And trust and believe, guys, we are here together. We're in this together. Thank you, Josiah, for coming. Thank you for building with me. We will build together as a community, and we can actually reach out and build all over the world. Josiah said that was very deep. He wants to save Cuba. He said unity and let's build, guys. So again, we all are different, but we're special because we're different. So let's make a change. Let's start by looking at, the person in the mirror. If we can start with the man in the mirror, then we can move forward and we can embrace what we don't understand, and we can help others and love others. Until then, guys, be safe. Walk in hope, walk in love, walk in forgiveness, and know what's going on around the world. Just don't look at your own country. Look at everything that's going on, guys. Why do you think this is happening? Don't you see that we should come together, that we should set our petty differences aside, and let's stop making up lies and let's start making content that makes sense? Have a great day, guys.